So let's talk about something that happens to pretty much every driver. Did you know that your driver's license has a huge milestone tied to your 70th birthday? Now, this isn't about losing your independence, not at all. It's about understanding the new rules of the road so you can keep it. In this explainer, we're going to break down the 5 critical changes you absolutely need to know. Let's dive in. For decades, right, you probably never gave your license renewal a second thought. It just happened. But now, new regulations are completely shifting gears across the US, the UK, and Australia. Your relationship with the driving authority in your country, well, it's about to change. And that simple process you've known for years is just not the same anymore. And you're going to want to pay close attention because there's one specific requirement, and we'll cover this as rule number 3, that if you miss it, could have some really serious consequences. We're going to make sure you have all the info you need to stay confidently and legally on the road. Okay, so the first major change is what I like to call the accelerated expiry. And honestly, it's a dramatic shortening of the time you have between renewals, and it catches a lot of people completely by surprise. Think about it. For most of your driving life, you've probably had this really comfortable 10-year gap between renewals. You barely had to think about it. But once you hit 70, that feeling of a forever license pretty much disappears. The clock just starts ticking a whole lot faster. Let's look at a few examples. And remember, these rules can vary a lot depending on where you live. So if you're in the UK, you have to renew every 3 years after you turn 70. Over in Ontario, Canada, it's every 2 years once you're over 80. And in some US states like Florida, the renewal period for drivers 80 plus gets shortened from 8 years down to 6. Now, the crucial takeaway here is this. If you miss that new, shorter deadline, you could technically be driving unlicensed. And if you have an accident in that situation, your insurance company could have grounds to deny your claim entirely. That could leave you with a massive, massive financial burden. The second big change, well, it affects something we've all come to rely on, doing things online. I call this the online blockade, and it's a really significant shift in how these renewals are handled. Yep, a lot of governments are now requiring you to show up in person for renewals once you're over 70. In places like California, for example, that in-person visit is mandatory. And the reason is actually pretty simple. They just want to do a basic visual check of your alertness and your mobility. So this just highlights how important it is to plan ahead. Please don't wait until the last minute. In-person appointments can be booked up for months, so a really good rule of thumb is to schedule your visit at least 90 days before your license is set to expire. And that brings us to rule number 3, which is where a lot of people can run into trouble. It's the vision gatekeeper. This is that critical point I mentioned right at the start. You know, it's no longer just about reading the bottom line of that eye chart. The newer regulations are focusing heavily on your peripheral vision, basically how well you can see out of the corner of your eye. And why? Because that's where pedestrians, cyclists, and other cars often appear from. And here is the hidden trap. You might have perfect 20/20 central vision with your glasses on, but if an underlying condition like glaucoma or cataracts is narrowing your field of view, you could still fail the test. It catches so many people off guard. So here is the fix. It's a game changer. First, go see your own eye doctor, maybe 2 weeks before your DMV appointment. Second, get a full report on your vision, making sure it includes your peripheral field. And third, if for some reason you failed the test at the DMV, you can often override their result with that professional certificate from your own specialist. This puts the power back in your hands. All right, rule number 4 is a tricky one. It's the self-declaration trap. This is a legal requirement that a lot of people just aren't aware of, but it has some really serious implications. In the UK and parts of Australia, when you renew your license after 70, you are legally required to declare any medical conditions that could affect your driving. If you don't, and you get into even a minor accident, you could be fined up to £1,000 in the UK or even face prosecution. And this includes things you might not immediately think affect your driving, like diabetes, sleep apnea, having a pacemaker, or even those vision conditions we just talked about, like glaucoma. The rule is simple. If your doctor knows about it, the driving authority needs to know about it too. Being honest here is what protects your insurance validity. And finally, our 5th point. This one offers a flexible solution that, honestly, not enough people know about. It's the rise of the graduated license, and it's a fantastic development that gives you options beyond just an all-or-nothing decision. We tend to think of driving as, all or nothing. Either you have a license or you have to surrender your keys for good. But that's just not true anymore. Many places now offer a really sensible middle ground. If you're maybe a little worried about passing the full test, you can often request a restricted license. This could mean you're only allowed to drive during daylight hours, or maybe only within a 15-mile radius of your home, or with a restriction against highway driving. This is huge. It means you can still get to the grocery store and visit friends, keeping your independence while just removing those high-stress situations. You know, getting older doesn't mean you have to stop living. It just means we have to be a little bit smarter about how we navigate the rules. So the crucial point here is to see these laws not as a punishment, but really as a checklist to keep you and everyone else on the road safe and legal. Now, we really want to hear from you. Have you been through this renewal process? Sharing your experience down in the comments could seriously help other people know what to expect. If you found this explainer helpful, please give it a like. Stay safe out there and stay legal.